There is a single blue diamond sitting behind bulletproof glass in Washington right now that is said to have destroyed almost everyone who ever owned it. A king lost his throne and his head. A queen was executed. One owner's son died. Her daughter took her own life. Her husband was declared insane, and she was forced to sell her family's newspaper before dying nearly broke. For 300 years, the story followed this stone like a shadow. Touch it, own it, wear it, and it will ruin you. It's called the Hope Diamond, and it is the most famous cursed object on Earth. But here is what almost nobody tells you. The real story of this diamond is stranger, and in some ways darker, than the curse itself. Because when you follow the trail all the way back, you find something uncomfortable. A huge part of the curse was invented, deliberately, as a sales tactic. And the reason it worked so well, the reason millions of people still believe it, says something deep and a little disturbing about how desire, luxury, and value actually work in the human mind. Let's start with the trail of misfortune, because it is real, and it is genuinely chilling. Our story begins in the 1600s, when a French merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier acquired a massive, deep blue diamond, a rough stone of around 112 carats, from India. He sold it to the most powerful man in Europe, King Louis XIV of France, the Sun King. It was cut into a brilliant stone that became known as the French blue, and it entered the French crown jewels, worn by royalty, a symbol of absolute power. And the curse, according to the legend, did not begin with the French kings at all. It began in India, where the diamond was supposedly pried from the eye of a statue of a Hindu goddess inside a temple. The theft, the tale says, enraged the gods, who cursed the stone and everyone who would ever possess it. And Tavernier, the merchant who first carried it west, the legend claims he was later torn apart by wild dogs. It is a fantastic, chilling origin story. It is also almost certainly false. Tavernier actually lived into his 80s and died of natural causes. The French monarchy that owned it was overthrown in one of the most violent revolutions in history. King Louis XVI and his wife, Marie Antoinette, both associated with these very crown jewels, were sent to the guillotine in 1793. Marie Antoinette in particular became forever tied, in the public imagination, to reckless royal extravagance and priceless jewels. And even though she almost certainly never wore this exact stone, the association stuck like glue. During the chaos of the Revolution, in 1792, the crown jewels were stolen, and the great blue diamond vanished completely. For 20 years, it simply disappeared from history. Around 1812, a blue diamond surfaces in London. But it's different, smaller, recut. The evidence strongly suggests someone deliberately recut the stolen French blue to disguise it, to hide its identity, because openly owning stolen French crown jewels would have forced its return. So the most famous diamond in the world spent 2 decades as a ghost and came back wearing a new face. It was only in modern times, using old records and computer reconstructions of the original French blue, that researchers finally proved it. The Hope Diamond had been cut down from the stolen crown jewel of France. The ghost had been hiding in plain sight the whole time, its identity erased with a jeweler's wheel. Eventually, it passes into the hands of a wealthy British banking family, the Hopes. The Hope fortune, over the generations, is said to have crumbled, ending with a descendant who inherited the diamond and eventually went bankrupt and had to sell it. Everywhere this stone goes, wealth and status seem to turn to ash. Which brings us to the person whose story is the beating heart of the curse, an American heiress named Evelyn Walsh McLean. And to understand her, you have to understand the man who sold her the diamond. The seller was Pierre Cartier. Yes, that Cartier. One of the greatest jewelers and, it turns out, one of the greatest salesmen who ever lived. Cartier understood something that cheap salesmen never do. He understood that he was not really selling a rock. He was selling a story. So he leaned into the diamond's dark history, and by many accounts, he embellished it. He gathered up the misfortunes, dramatized them, and wove them into a single terrifying legend of an ancient curse that struck down everyone who owned the stone. He did not hide the danger. He advertised it. And here is the genius and the disturbing part. For most products, a story about death and ruin would destroy the sale. But for Evelyn McLean, it did the opposite. She was fascinated. The curse didn't scare her away. It made the diamond irresistible. Cartier had figured out that for a certain kind of buyer, the danger is the product. She bought it for a sum equal to millions of dollars today, and she did not lock it in a vault. Evelyn McLean wore the Hope diamond constantly, to parties, to dinners, everywhere, almost daring the curse to do its worst. She let her children play with it. She once even hung it on the collar of her Great Dane. To her, the danger was not a warning. It was a thrill, and being the woman bold enough to wear the world's most cursed jewel made her the most talked-about hostess in Washington. The curse was not a flaw in her purchase. It was the entire point of it. And then the legend seemed to come true. Over the 36 years Evelyn McLean owned the Hope diamond, her life was struck by tragedy after tragedy. Her young son died in a car accident. Years later, her daughter died from an overdose. Her husband's mental health collapsed, and he was eventually declared insane and institutionalized. The family's fortune drained away, and she was forced to sell the Washington Post, the newspaper her family owned. She died with the diamond still in her possession, her life a portrait of exactly the ruin the curse had promised. So, is the Hope diamond cursed? Historians and the Smithsonian will tell you plainly, there is no curse. The dramatic version of the story, the ancient temple, the stolen eye of an idol, the systematic destruction of every owner, was largely stitched together and exaggerated, and Pierre Cartier's sales pitch poured fuel on it. Many people owned or handled this diamond and lived perfectly ordinary, long lives. The tragedies of Evelyn McLean were terribly real, but tragedy, unfortunately, is not rare in any long human life. Line up the misfortunes and ignore the calm decades in between, and you can make almost anything look cursed. Since 1958, the Hope diamond has been owned by the Smithsonian Institution, donated by the jeweler Harry Winston, who mailed it, by the way, in a simple package through the regular post. And the mailman who delivered it lived a long life. In the decades the Smithsonian has owned it, there have been no curses, no ruin, nothing. Today it sits in a museum, viewed by around 7 million people a year, making it very likely the single most visited museum object on the planet. Millions of people standing in line, not to see a beautiful blue stone, to see a story. And that is the real treasure here. Because think about what actually happened. A blue rock, chemically just carbon with a trace of boron that makes it blue, became one of the most valuable and famous objects on Earth. Not because of what it is. It became priceless because of the story wrapped around it. This is the secret engine underneath almost all extreme luxury, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. At the very top, you are almost never paying for the object. You are paying for the story attached to it. The watch that costs more than a house is not keeping better time. The painting that sells for $100 million is not $100 million of paint. The handbag, the car, the address, the wine. Past a certain point, the physical thing stops mattering, and you are buying meaning, history, status, and rarity. You are buying a story you can own. Pierre Cartier understood this 100 years ago. The entire luxury world runs on it today. Consider the diamond itself. We treat diamonds as the ultimate symbol of rarity and eternal value. But here is an inconvenient truth. Diamonds are not actually that rare. For much of the last century, a single company, De Beers, controlled the vast majority of the world's diamond supply and deliberately limited how many reached the market to keep prices high. And the idea that you must buy a diamond engagement ring? That was not an ancient tradition. It was an advertising campaign, one of the most successful in history, an entire global belief about love, engineered to sell a stone. And the Hope Diamond reveals the strangest twist of that psychology, the one Cartier exploited. We are drawn to things that are dangerous, forbidden, or touched by darkness. A perfectly nice diamond is beautiful. A diamond that supposedly destroys everyone who owns it is unforgettable. The danger doesn't lower the value. It raises it. Think about how much of what we desire follows this exact pattern. The tragic artist whose paintings are worth more because of a troubled life. The brand with a rebellious, dangerous founder myth. The car made famous by someone who died young. We rarely fall in love with the safe, the ordinary, the well-adjusted version. We fall for the one with a shadow. Cartier did not invent that instinct in us. He just read it more clearly than almost anyone and priced it accordingly. So here is what the most famous cursed object in the world actually teaches you. First, the value of a luxury object at the highest level is mostly the story, not the substance, which means value can be created out of almost nothing by whoever tells the best story. Second, our minds are wired to find patterns and curses in random misfortune and to pay more for danger, not less, which is a lever that has been pulled on us our entire lives without us noticing. And third, the quiet one. The diamond outlasts every single person who ever owned it. Kings, queens, heiresses, billionaires. They all believed, for a moment, that they possessed it. And every one of them is gone. And the stone sits calmly behind glass, waiting for the next person to think they own it. Maybe that's the only real curse. Not that the diamond destroys you, but that you can spend a fortune and a lifetime believing you own something when the truth is closer to the opposite. The beautiful, rare, expensive things don't belong to us. We just take care of them for a little while, tell ourselves a story about what they mean, and then pass them on. So I want to hear from you in the comments. What's an object, a brand, or a thing you've wanted where you realize now you were really buying the story, not the object itself? Be honest, we've all done it. And if you want more of these, subscribe and stay with me. Because on this channel, we're not really here for the price tags. We're here for what they reveal about all of us. I'll see you in the next one.